Welcome to the Tech Talk by Microsoft EMEA. Today we will talk about Azure Arc Administration and Services Overview. My name is Manfred Helber. I'm a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional in the category Cloud and Data Center, and I'm looking forward to this hour together with you to talk about this very important topic, Azure Arc. Before I will start with several live demos about this topic, I will talk a little bit about Azure Arc, what it is and what it can be used for. And you can use the chat on the platform you are watching to ask your questions about the topic. So feel free to enter your questions into the chat and I will pick them up and answer them directly in this live call. So to talk a little bit about Azure Arc, what it is, what it can be used for. Azure Arc is an Azure service that can be used to manage Windows Server and Linux systems out of Azure. So if you're running Windows VMs or Linux VMs, for sure, you can use the Azure portal to manage these systems. You can use Azure Backup, you can use Azure Monitoring, and so on. When the system is outside Azure, you can use technologies like Azure Monitor, Azure Backup, and so on as dedicated standalone products. But in the past, it was not possible to use the Azure portal for management. And with Azure Arc, we extend Azure to on-premises. This is the first important thing. With Windows Server and Linux on any hardware, we will focus on Windows Server in this call. Azure Stack HCI, but also Windows and Linux operating systems in other clouds. So in other cloud platforms and at the edge. So if you are prefer to run your workload at the edge, you can also use the Azure Arc to onboard these systems. Azure Arc is available via an agent we install on the target systems. This is the Azure Connected Machine agent, and this agent enables us to use the Azure Resource Manager for all the functionalities or for all the technologies we are using there. And I want to show you how to onboard a new system to Azure Arc, and I want to show you how to extend Azure Arc with additional services in the Azure portal. Maybe you have joined the Tech Talk session where I explained you how to install Windows Admin Center. This is exactly the Windows Admin Center from this session. So if you have not seen this session, you can review the session on my YouTube channel via youtube.com/Manfred Helber. There you have the full explanation of all the steps required to install Windows Admin Center and to onboard Windows Admin Center to Azure Hybrid Services, because this is already prepared here. So my Windows Admin Center in this configuration, when I go to the settings and when I go to the registration, I will see this Windows Admin Center is already registered with Azure, so it can be used together with Azure. And when I go to the login page, I will see that the account it's used here, it's Manfred at manfredhelber.de. So in the Windows Admin Center itself, I will refer to a server I have here, for example, server 12. And we will configure this server 12. Let's extend the display resolution here on this machine to full HD because we will work mainly in this machine here. So I will refer to the server 12. Let's see what the server 12, what machine type this is. I will connect to the server 12 here directly. This is not required. I will only show you this is an graphical server. This could also be an server core installation. And let's check the operating system version. This is Windows Server 2022. This can be standard or data center. This can be 2019, 2016, 2012. It also can be 2008, but 2008 is not any longer supported in the Microsoft ecosystem, except you have extended security updates. in running your workload, for example, in Azure or on Azure Stack HCI. So this machine, when I go to the control panel, we will see there are no applications installed here. Let's check this. Only the Edge web browser is installed on this machine. This information is also available via the Windows Admin Center. When I go back to the Windows Admin Center, I can see, okay, this machine is Windows Server 2022 Data Center installation here. Then we have the information about the installed apps. It's the Edge and the Edge update here. We didn't see the Edge update in the control panel. This is here a little bit more detailed in the Windows Admin Center. Now to onboard this server for Azure Arc, we can go to the Azure Hybrid Center in the Windows Admin Center. So Windows Admin Center is the local tool, and this is the easiest option for onboarding a server to Azure Arc. I will click on Setup. So I will use the Azure subscription, Azure sponsorship. I want to create a new resource group. This will be the MEA resource group 01. Let's do it in a different way. We'll use a timestamp. And the Azure region, I will choose West Europe. Okay, Microsoft Azure, MEA resource group 1411-2020, West Europe. And when I scroll down, this is only for the screen in the back. I will set this up here. Now it creates the resource group and it configures Azure Arc on my server. If this is successful, we will receive the Azure Connected Machine agent. Let's check this on another machine here. I will open a new tab for the Windows Admin Center, and I will go to the server 11. I have to authenticate here again. Oh, my credentials didn't work. How can this be? Now they work. And when I check the Azure Hybrid Center here on this machine, it's a different server, it's a different target machine, it's the same Windows Admin Center. And I can see this machine is already onboarded for Azure Arc. And because the machine is onboarded for Azure Arc, we have installed in the installed apps the Azure Connected Machine agent. This is exactly the agent for Azure Arc. And in the notification window, I have seen that also the server 12 was successfully onboarded. So I can switch back to the server 12 and I can look to the installed apps and we'll see, okay, the Azure Connected Machine agent is installed on this machine. So what's the advantage? Important is this is, we don't have any costs for this situation here. I've installed only the agent. I didn't install any additional services, so Azure Arc itself is for free. Installing the agent, onboarding the server via Azure Arc to the Azure portal is free. So what can I do now? I can switch to the Azure Hybrid Center and I can select the installed services and I can click on View Server in Azure. A new tab is opened in my web browser, and in this new tab, I have information about this server here. Let's see. It's the MEA resource group I created. It's the D201 server, the server number 12. It's my mhdemolab.de domain. It's the Windows Server 2020 data center we have installed here. Now, when I look at the capabilities, I have extensions I can install for this machine. So, and the interesting thing about this is I'm now in the Azure portal. I'm not any longer in the Windows Admin Center. I've been here before. I'm now in the Azure portal. I have access to my server system, and I have different capabilities, or I have different tools here on the left-hand side and several additional capabilities. So now, for example, want to configure a Windows, an Azure Log Analytics or the monitoring insights or policies for this machine. I can do this via the Azure portal. It's not required to go back to the Windows Admin Center and go to the available hybrid services and configure things like Azure Monitor. It's possible to do this via the Azure portal. We will try a few of these features in a second. So this is great. Let's see one thing, for example, Windows Admin Center. Windows Admin Center is in preview, you can see here. And for sure, I could install Windows Admin Center on my server 12 locally. And I can also use the local Windows Admin Center. But I could also decide to use Azure Arc to enable the Windows Admin Center on this target machine. I will click on Setup, the listening port here, and I will click on Install. So Windows Admin Center is installed on this target machine D201 SRV12. In a few minutes, we will find another installed application on exactly this machine because the Windows Admin Center requires some bits and bytes that have to be installed locally, and we will find these bits and bytes on the local machine exactly in Control Panel software. So we have one question in the chat. Hello, Manfred. If it's time, then a few words about the Microsoft Defender for Cloud for Azure Stack HCI. I will come back to the security part in a few minutes. Let's finish the Windows Admin Center, and I will talk about this. And for sure, we can also talk about Azure Stack HCI, and maybe you want to add some additional questions about this. So the installation of Windows Admin Center was triggered via the Azure Arc agent. When I go back to my Windows Admin Center and when I look to the installed apps, then we will see the Azure Connected Machine agent. Let's use blue as color. This is the Azure Arc agent. This Azure Arc agent is triggered via Azure. And this agent can configure other settings on the machine or install other agents on the machine. So this is our management agent. We can use the Azure portal to configure things. We have seen policies. We had a question in the chat about the security component, and this will install additional agents here. Yeah, and Windows Admin Center takes a while. If you know Windows Admin Center from the local installation, you know that the setup takes about 5 minutes or something like this. It will be similar here. The installation itself is triggered via the Azure Arc agent. The bits and bytes are downloaded, the setup is executed, and then we will find a Windows Admin Center installation here with the great option that this Windows Admin Center is now accessible via the Azure portal. So we don't have to switch back to the Windows Admin Center tab over there. We can stay in the Azure portal. You can see here portal.azure.com and access our local on-premises server. This server 12 is a server that runs exactly on my server hardware in my data center on site. And I can there use the Windows Admin Center in this Azure portal to configure or to manage this server via the Windows Admin Center. Let's see if the extension is already there. No, it's still installing, so we have to spend some additional time. Maybe we can use this time for a few additional information about Azure Arc here, and maybe for this security question already. When I go to the Azure portal and when I look for Azure Arc, then we can see for Azure Arc, we have a lot of different components that can be Arc enabled. For sure, we have the servers. This is where we focus today on. But we can also have SQL servers. We can have VMware vCenter servers. It's a preview. We can have virtual machine manager. We can have Kubernetes clusters. We can have Azure Stack HCI Arc enabled. And the great thing about Azure Stack HCI is that it's automatically Arc enabled. We have the Azure Arc virtual machines. So a server here can be a physical machine or a virtual machine. The Arc virtual machines are virtual machines on typically Arc-enabled physical hosts. So this is dedicated for virtual machines. Then here on the top in the management section, we can see the custom locations. This represents your data center location. For me, it would be, for example, Germany or Würzburg. This is where I'm based in Germany here. We can have the data controllers, the resource bridges. This is in preview. The resource bridge gives us the ability to bring Azure resources to on-premises, to deploy them several times to ensure that if I deploy a Windows machine based on Azure, on an Azure template, that the template has only to be transferred once and not several times. Service principal, private link scopes, and in the data services, when I scroll down a little bit, we have the PostgreSQL hyperscale, the SQL managed instances, and also app services are available in the meantime. But these app services, AP management, app services, event grid functions, logic apps, this is all in preview here. So these things are in preview actually. When we look to the pricing, we can see Azure Arc is free of charge. We don't have any additional costs for Azure Arc. So no additional costs to onboard servers, no additional costs to onboard Kubernetes. But for sure, if I enable additional paid services via Azure Arc, then I have to pay for them the regular price. So when we go, for example, for azure.microsoft.com, azure.microsoft.com, then we have the pricing, and let's go to the pricing calculator. Let's take, for example, backup. When I use Azure Backup via Azure Arc or monitoring, or let's do the Azure Monitor part. When we use the Azure Monitor, we can see here $0, but this is because I don't have specified any amount of data that will be part of this monitoring. So when I, for example, say here I have 5 gigabytes per day, I will have some costs here for sure. So it depends on the data amount that is, sorry, this is gigabytes per day. Let's go to 1 gigabyte. This is costs based on the amount of data that is part of this monitoring action that is transferred to Azure. So if you are below 5 gigabytes in each month, there's information somewhere here in the text, you will not have anything charged. And this is the information thing about the Azure Arc part. Azure Arc itself does not result in any additional costs, but for sure, if you have additional services already onboarded or onboarded via Azure Arc, then we have the costs for these services. So they are not reduced to $0 only because we're using Azure Arc. Now we have an important information. You must be part of the Windows Admin Center Administrator login group to connect, click to manage access. So Windows Admin Center is installed now. So when I refresh here, I will see on this server 12, I have an additional agent. The installation of the Windows Admin Center agent was triggered by the Azure Connected Machine agent. Now I have to configure some security settings to ensure that my user can access it. I will go to the settings here and I will go to the role assignment and I will go to the Windows Admin Center, to the roles. I will go to the Windows Admin Center administrators role, this one here, and I will add a role assignment. And I will go to the members and I want to add a member, and the member is Manfred. So this is my member here. So I will add myself, and I can do this because I'm the global administrator here. So didn't I select a role? I didn't select a role. Windows Admin Center administrators. Yes, Windows Admin Center administrators log in. Manfred is the user, and I will add this user, review and assign. And when I go back to the Windows Admin Center now, I can connect to my local machine. The great thing is I stay in the Azure portal here. I'm still on portal.azure.com. Windows Admin Center is starting here. And I will receive my well-known Windows Admin Center graphical user interface to manage my server that runs on premises in my data center. And I can use things like the overview here, remote desktop, roles and features. I could install some roles on this server 16. And for sure, I can also review the installed apps. So I don't have to leave the Azure portal for managing this system. I have the full managing capabilities here directly from the Azure portal. I could, for example, go for roles and features. And I could decide to configure the server 12 as a file server, for example. So let's go to File and Storage Services. And let's install the file server component and the data deduplication. And I will install these components. And this is triggered also via the agents on this target machine, now directly via the Windows Admin Center agent, because this is the interface or the referring agent for these actions I'm executing here actually. Here was the information that the server has to be restarted. This is also no problem because the restart can be triggered on the overview section here. I can connect to this machine and then restart this machine. There's a connectivity via remote desktop or via PowerShell possible here. Okay, so let's go back to the top of to the overview section. And now we can see Windows Admin Center. Sorry for this. I'm going back to the overview section. The Windows Admin Center is now onboarded. Windows Admin Center is now onboarded successfully. And here you can see we have different optics in this or visualization in these capabilities. So Windows Admin Center and policies, they have this information configured or not configured. We don't have this on security, updates, logs, and monitoring insights, but these capabilities are also configured for the local system, but these are somehow extensions of the already installed Azure Arc agent. So before I started, or while I started with the Windows Admin Center, we had a question about security. And we had the question about security, especially for Azure Arc. And for sure, we can also use for Azure Stack HCI was the question. For sure, we can also use Azure Arc for Azure Stack HCI. Let's switch to an Azure Stack HCI cluster target. I will use this one here. And when we here go to the overview, we can see we have the get started actions, the nodes, and the capabilities. So actually in the capabilities and also on the left-hand side, we don't have this capability security here. But this is only a question of the release or time in the roadmap where we are. So what I want to explain is that for Azure Stack HCI or servers or SQL servers, the Azure Arc feature set is different. So for example, for Azure Stack HCI, we have this resources section here where we can use VM images, disks, virtual networks, virtual machines. This resource section is not available for a traditional server. On the other hand, the traditional server today has more capabilities that are already available. But when you think about the security agent itself, so the Defender is also part for Azure Stack HCI. And for sure, we can also use the Defender for endpoint capabilities together with Azure Stack HCI. I'm not sure if this was the question in the chat about the Microsoft Defender for Cloud for Azure Stack HCI, but for sure, even if this is not visible in the Azure Arc area here in the Azure portal, we can use the capabilities of Defender for Endpoint for Azure Stack HCI systems. This is possible. This is similar feature set we have in Windows Server 2022, but today not directly onboarded to the Arc pages here in the Azure portal where we see the Azure Stack HCI capabilities. On the other hand, we can use additional features like the resources I mentioned here for Azure Stack HCI. Let's see this cluster here. This is an Azure Stack HCI cluster. It's based on version Azure Stack HCI 2020 H2. And we have the logs, the insights, the Windows Admin Center already configured here. So all the capabilities are enabled. Both nodes, this is a 2-node cluster, both nodes are Azure Arc enabled. And in the resources now, I can have virtual machines that are running on this cluster, and I can manage these virtual machines. So I could select, for example, the virtual machine 02, and I could decide to restart the machine. I could decide to stop the machine. I can see the configuration of this machine. So networking, the configuration of the OS, the CPU cores, the memory. I can see the capabilities, guest management. Maybe I want to have logs and change tracking also for the virtual machine. So on Azure Stack HCI, I have this additional steps towards the virtual machine that is Arc enabled there also, or can be Arc enabled. When I have the resource bridge installed and when I have the virtual guest management installed. Interesting about this is that we also can work with VM images now that are provided from the Azure portal. Here we can see that I have 2 virtual machine images, one for Windows 11 objects from the Azure portal and also for Windows Server Data Center. So these are Azure images I have downloaded. I will go to download an image stored in the Azure Marketplace, provided from the Azure Marketplace. And here I have the images that are provided. And we can see two of the images are already downloaded. You have seen I had a failure on the server core image. This was because of a lack in resources on my machine. So we could download this again. I could decide to use the core image, HCI on-prem. Here I want to download it. And the name for the image is Windows Server 2022. It's a data center. Let's use the 2022 data center Azure Edition core image. Yeah. Now I can go to next to specify some tags and then next preview and create again. And then I can create this image. Now it downloads the image from the Azure portal, and the download is triggered via the Azure Arc resource bridge. And I can show you the Azure Arc resource bridge in a few seconds. I have to connect to another system. So let's see this machine here. So I have a Windows Admin Center session that should be loaded there. And I will go, I have to reopen the session. So let's go to the Windows Admin Center 01 machine, this environment. It seems it has some issues with the certificate here. Let's use another way. It's good to have the Azure Arc implementation there. We can also switch to the Azure portal here. This is a different way. While the deployment is running here, I can go to a new tab. And in this new tab in the portal, I will go to Azure Stack HCI. I will select my cluster and I can use the Windows Admin Center. I will connect to the Windows Admin Center. So I have some issues with my local instance of Windows Admin Center here. If you install Windows Admin Center, you remember the demo video. There's a self-signed certificate that is valid for 60 days. I don't think this is the issue here. mhdemolab /administrator password. So what's the issue here with this machine? Administrator at mhdemolab.de. The password is different. Yeah, this was my mistake. It was a typo here. So let's sign in. Now it should work. No, it doesn't work. Why does it not work? It's mhdemolab.de. So maybe it's related to the issue we have seen locally. The password is not correct. So sorry for this. It seems I have some issue here with my configuration. Usually it should work on this target machine, but I have also the issue with my local admin center here on this machine. So I'm afraid we have to stay on the other one. I don't have a typo in the username. So I'm afraid I cannot show you what I wanted to show you exactly on this machine, but I can explain it to you. With downloading this image in the backend at the Azure Stack HCI cluster 1101, it's now available here. What I wanted to show you, and sorry for this is not available here because of the connectivity issue. It shows that it is shouldn't be a typo in the password, but I'm pretty sure that the password is correct. But here we can see we have now the core image available. This is now downloaded. In the other session where we started or triggered this download, we can see when we go back to the home section now and to the Azure Arc part or the Azure Stack HCI part, we can go to Azure Stack HCI in the same view here with the VM images. Now we have also the image for the server core installation available. This was the version or the image that had a failure when we looked at it 5 minutes ago. So now the great thing is, via Azure Arc, we are able to go to virtual machines and to deploy a new virtual machine on this target cluster. Let's see if it works, because I had this connectivity issues in Windows Admin Center, but usually this Azure portal thing should work because I don't have any connectivity to the Windows Admin Center here. Let's see, I will have a subscription. I want to use a resource group. To clarify this, I'm in the Azure portal here. I'm creating a virtual machine from the Azure portal. I'm using maybe the resource group we specified before. It's the MEA resource group from today. The virtual machine name will be the MEA demo VM01. We have our custom location. It's HCI on-prem in West Europe. The virtual machine kind is Azure Stack HCI, and I will use the Windows Server Data Center Azure Edition. Let's use the core one, the image I recently downloaded here. Virtual CPU count 4, memory 8 gigabytes, memory type static. Next step is disk, not a disk for the operating system. Sorry, I have to provide some logon credentials. So I want to enable the guest management. I will go to next. These are additional disks. This is not the OS disk. The OS disk is already part of the base image. And I will configure some networking things because I need a network where I connect this machine. This is the MEA VMLAN here I will use. I want to add this network. I will go to preview and create, and I want to create this machine. Now the creation process of the machine is triggered on my local Azure Stack HCI cluster. So I'm not sure if we will have enough time to wait for it till it finishes here. But if I open a new Azure portal session in a new tab here, I can go to my Azure Stack HCI cluster 110, and I can go to the virtual machines, and I will see the MEA VM in a few minutes. So this machine is deployed locally. And I don't have to wait hours because the local resource bridge already has the image. So this huge image for the server core installation, it's several gigabytes in size, was downloaded once a few minutes ago when we triggered it here, and now it can be used for additional local deployments. And these locally deployed virtual machines can be started via the Azure portal, they can be ended, I can connect via remote desktop, and so on. So these are a few of these great opportunities with Azure Arc. So we'll come back here. I wanted to say we will come back here when the machine is created, but now we already see the machine, the MEA demo VM. Maybe this machine is not finished now. Maybe some deployment steps are finishing. Here we can see I had an issue here in the deployment. I can see the details, what happened. I was too fast here because this image I was using, not found, image gallery, Azure Core not found. So the portal showed me a green sign on it, but maybe the download in the backend was still running. Let's create another new machine. Let's create a machine with an image I downloaded a few days before. Let's go to the MEA resource group. The MEA resource group. Let's choose the MEA demo VM02. We will use the Windows Server with graphical user interface. I will specify a username and a password. And no additional disks. Networking is required for guest management. And now let's try if this works better. Let's create this machine. And again, the Azure Arc agent triggers the deployment on my local environment. And we will review this if this is successful or not. Last time I had an issue, I ran out of resources. This might happen, yes, but then we can read here exactly what the problem is. So Azure Arc Resource Bridge was one of the topics. This is an exclusive thing for Azure Stack HCI. I think we have seen that there are different capabilities regarding if the target is a Windows Server or if the target is an Azure Stack HCI system. They are also different for Linux or VMware or other platforms. Let's walk a little bit through the tools on the left-hand side. We already learned what the capabilities are. We deployed the capability Windows Admin Center. We talked about the capability security. So feel free if you have to add anything to your question. I'm not sure if this was the answer to your question or if your question was into another direction. Activity log. Here I can see what were the changes on this object, because when a server is onboarded to Azure Arc or to Azure, this is an object in Azure. And so we have a release history on this object. We can see when the object was updated, when things were changed. We have the access control. We have seen this for the Windows Admin Center. Via the access control, I can specify in detail who has access, when is the access, so the role-based access parts. We have the tags that are associated to this resource. We have the diagnostics part for diagnose and solving problems on exactly this machine. So for example, for configuration or for troubleshooting. Here we can see, oh, there were 31 changes to this resource in the last 72 hours. So we onboarded this machine, we configured things, so many changes actually. Then in the settings part, we can connect to this machine via SSH. We can use the Windows Admin Center. We can configure security. We didn't onboard this extension. This is the reason why we actually don't have, yeah, this is not completely true. I didn't onboard the server to security via Azure Arc, but in my environment, I have Defender via policy active for all the servers. So every server that is onboarded to my environment is automatically onboarded for the Defender for servers here. We have the extensions. So these are additional things we have installed. Admin Center is already there. And when we click on plus, we can see additional extensions like SQL Server extension, OpenSSH, custom script extension, log analytics agent that can be used on this machine here. We have the properties for this object. It's an object in Azure, and the logs. Because it's an object in Azure, we can log this object to ensure that is not accidentally deleted. Then we have the policies. We can deliver configuration policies to this machine. So here we can see we have configurations like Defender for cloud containers provisioning, data protection, and so on. Here, this is compliant because I have this automatic onboarding I mentioned. We have the machine configuration. Here for Defender, Exploit Guard, and Log Analytics Agent installation, it's not compliant. These are additional capabilities I have to configure here. Auto Manage is a great capability. This auto manage is actually in preview, and with auto manage, we have the situation that we can onboard all these extensions automatically with the Windows Server Data Center Azure Edition. This is the edition that is available via Azure Stack HCI and virtual machines in Azure. Update management is available for Azure Arc enabled virtual machines or physical machines. And remember, this machine here is on premises. So what I'm doing here, managing updates for my server on premises via the Azure portal. So I'm not connected to the Windows Admin Center. It's good because my Windows Admin Center locally has an issue. So I'm using the Azure portal. I have the inventory here. I can see information about my system and my system inventory. Here I have the information. To get full information, I have to configure the change tracking via the Azure portal here. Change tracking here can be enabled via the enabling here or via clicking on this banner again. Then it moves to the information how to enable this functionality for all the machines. The monitoring insights and log analytics can be activated here. If you activate this, this takes a while till the information is provided. So I will switch to an environment where this was onboarded before. When I go to the insights here, for example, then we will see detailed information about these servers here. I can see the memory usage, the health of these servers. I will see the virtual machines. You can see I have 11 running virtual machines, 1 stop virtual machine, no failed virtual machines. I have details here below. I can click on these objects and see, okay, 91% of the VMs are running, and I have the storage information, so I can see the health state of the volumes. I can see the IOPS, the throughput, the latency. I can see the related drives. So detailed information about the local server in this specific scenario, an Azure Stack HCI solution, but this would be similar for Windows Server. We can use automation, so we can build tasks via Azure Arc and deploy them to the target servers. We can use the resource health to get detailed information about the health of this resource. And for sure, like always in Azure, we have the support requests here. So if we have any issues on this Azure Arc enabled target, we can also use the Azure support for the Azure related topics. So let's go back to this cluster 110, and let's go to the virtual machines. And here we'll see, okay, now we have the MEA demo VM 02. This machine is running. So you can see the difference. This first machine was deployed based on an image that was still downloading. I was too fast for this deployment here. And the second machine is running. This was based on an image I downloaded a few days ago. And I can switch to this machine, can see the configuration for this machine, could restart the machine, stop the machine. And as I mentioned, I can also use the configurations for this virtual machine because I enabled the Arc guest management. So this is also important. Azure Arc is available for the physical layer on premises or in other data centers if you have access to this layer, but also for the virtual machine layer. To go back to the presentation, what we have seen for the Azure Connected Machine Agent are these extensions. We have seen a few of them. The Windows Admin Center, I managed the monitoring, the script extensions, and so on. And important is also to keep in mind that Azure Arc, it's always an outbound connectivity. When you look at these arrows here, they always go from on-premises to the cloud and not vice versa. So you don't have to expose any servers. You don't have to expose the servers externally. You only use the local Azure Connected Machine Agent to ensure the connectivity to the related ARM objects, the hybrid compute resource provider, the guest configuration, the log analytics. The Azure Resource Bridge I mentioned. This is the extension for Azure Stack HCI, for System Center Virtual Machine Manager, and also available for VMware to bring these images to our on-premises location, to control workloads from the Azure portal, to be able, for example, to start and stop virtual machines from the Azure portal, and to bring this extend these capabilities to the virtual machine management layer. So hopefully this explanation was helpful for you to understand what Azure Arc is and to see how it works. And in my specific scenario, we have seen that Azure Arc saved my life because I have some issues with my local Windows Admin Center instance. But when the server is Azure Arc onboarded, I can use this, and I could use the Azure Arc for deploying virtual machines, starting virtual machines, stopping virtual machines, connecting to the servers, and so on. If you have any questions about Azure Arc, feel free to bring up these questions here in the chat. If you have questions about Microsoft technologies overall, about licensing, about Windows Server, about hybrid technologies, about Azure Stack HCI, about storage spaces direct in Windows Server, about remote desktop services, or whatever, then feel free to bring them tomorrow to the Tech Talk. It's also streamed to YouTube and LinkedIn, and you can use the chat to ask your questions. It's again the same time we had for the Tech Talk today. It's about 11:30 German time, or UCT +1. In next week, today, in 1 week, we have the Windows Admin Center update. The Windows Admin Center was recently released as preview in a new version, and we will talk about the new capabilities in Windows Admin Center in this new version next week, same time, same channels, with the Tech Talk about Windows Admin Center updates. And on November the 28th, we have the Tech Talk about Azure Kubernetes Services on Azure Stack HCI overview. And I will also explain you how a deployment can work. It will be in some optimized steps because we have only 1 hour, but I will explain you where you can find a helpful script to deploy AKS on Azure Stack HCI. So if you have any questions or feedback or specific wishes, feel free to use the chat to bring them up. And I'm looking forward to see you tomorrow for the Tech Talk Q&A and next week for the Tech Talk about Windows Admin Center update. So far, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your question about security. If anything was unanswered about the Defender for Cloud for Azure Stack HCI, feel free to bring this up in the chat again. And I'm saying goodbye at this point in time, and I'm looking forward to see you tomorrow, next week. Bye.